And we are live. Welcome so much to the live Q&A for design and Canva questions. My name is Trevor from Just Enough Design, and I'll be here today answering some of the most common and popular questions regarding Canva, how to do certain items and different tasks, as well as anything that comes into the chat as we are live here today. Again, thank you so much for joining us. If you are live with me at the moment or at any point during the broadcast, drop in your question to the chat box. If you're joining us previously on the recording, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube or Facebook page, Just Enough Design, and you'll be notified about future go lives where we'll be able to work together and solve the problems. So really excited for some of the tricks and ideas that we have today. Can't wait to get started. The first one I'm especially excited about because I just discovered this, and this is for a free way to remove the background in an image. Now, so in this case here, we have this lovely portrait. You can see that it has a fully transparent background. That wasn't always the case. Now, you may know if you have used Canva that the free version does not have the remove background effect. Today I'm going to be using my free version to make sure that I'm not using only paid versions or paid features that exist. But you'll notice that if you go into Effects, Background Remover, that is only a pro feature. However, what's really interesting is a competitor to Canva has it for free. It's a free account that you can sign up for, and then you're able to download and upload it, and I want to show you how to do just that. So it's super useful. So how to remove the background from an image for use in Canva. Let's go ahead and remove this, and we'll take this step by step. So a competitor to Canva is Spark, Adobe Spark. So spark.adobe.com. You can sign up for a free account. They do have paid tiers. However, everything I show you today can be done on the free one. So what we're going to do is we're going to have our photo on this, create the transparent background. It's actually quite remarkable how well it works. Then we'll download it, upload it, and be able to use it inside Canva. So let's get started there. We'll be able to find that same photo. What's really nice is much like Canva, it has access to a wide variety of photos, all free to use. You can upload your own. So if you have a portrait of yourself that you want to remove the background, you can upload it without issue. But let's get started with what they have. We'll go to Find Free Photos. Photos here on the left side. So we went into, tell you what, actually, it's step one step back. You'll sign up for Spark, again, a free account, not a problem, and choose whatever size. I think Instagram post is great as far as just a square one. So this will look somewhat familiar to Canva. So we're inside of Spark. We'll click on Instagram post. You can choose anyone here because we're only looking to get a photo, remove the background, download it, upload it. So great. So we're inside of this now. On the left side, again, very familiar to Canva, we'll choose Photos. You can choose to upload your profile photo, or we could search for free photos. So we see Find Free Photos. And I'm going to define that photo I was working with to show you. I'll go ahead and search for a portrait. Let's see. There we are. Now, when I first did it, I was fairly surprised that it worked because this is a fairly complex photo if you look at all the strands of hair, and the program did really well. Now the trick to this is that because it is the free version, you'll notice here on the right side, there's a little tag, a little watermark, Adobe Spark. You can't get rid of that using the free version, but that's okay. I'm going to show you a trick how to bypass that for our purposes here. Now again, if you're just using the free Canva, Adobe Spark would be a great alternative. It is a very nice piece of software too, worth checking out. But I digress. So get the photo about the size you want. Inside of here, we'll select it, and over here on the right side, you're going to see Remove Background Beta. So they had just released this recently, and that's why I came across it. We'll go ahead and select that. The computer is going to think for a little bit, and look at that. What's really impressive to me is, like, especially if you see these complex hairs, right? Now, if you were a professional editor with Photoshop, everything else, you could probably improve it a bit, but its ability to take out these colors amongst this complicated hair is amazing. Like, I was really, really impressed by that. So now let's check it out though. So as I mentioned, you'll notice again, you have the Adobe Spark watermark on the right side here. So what you want to do is inside, we have our frame from Instagram, just our 1080 by 1080. What you want to do is you want to place the photo on the left side of that watermark, right? So don't crop on the left side. There we have it. See? So nicely centered around it. It is not behind the watermark. Now we'll go ahead and hit download PNG. and start download. Now this pop-up comes up and solid color, as in it have a white background or transparent. So this is the difference, because with Canva, unless you have the paid one, you're not allowed to download transparent. So that's the one edge here we have with Spark, which is really exciting. So go ahead and download that and save as, just save that locally. Off you go. Wonderful. Now you hop back over to Canva. Now I've already uploaded it for us to show. So we'll go ahead and click it in. Here we are. So here's that same photo. And again, you can see it's really impressive how well it actually worked. But of course, you'll notice there's the watermark. That's not going to look really good for our design. But if you've ever worked with a photo in Canva, as you might remember, if you select it, you'll see these little oblique or rounded corner, rounded squares on the sides. So again, you drag the photo in, select it, grab this, and just crop out that Adobe Spark. There we have it. A transparent image for free, really high quality, and surprisingly good version of it. Honestly, if I had to spend time, I have Photoshop. I know how to remove backgrounds as a professional designer. I don't know that I would spend the time compared to this result. I'm really impressed by that. But you can see by using these two free pieces of software in tandem, you'll be able to get this great result to remove the image from the background. So starting off this live stream with a bang, one of my favorite new effects that we just found. Hey, welcome to Kessa and Bono for watching. We have Bulgaria and Philippines. Welcome so much. I'm so glad you could join me today. So if you guys have any questions or something you've struggled with, just toss in the chat. I'd be happy to take a look or help. So next, and it's almost becoming a theme of the episode today, but with Canva free, you're not able to automatically resize a post. So what's really nice with Canva is if you want to have a YouTube thumbnail, then you want to take that same design you came up with and then also put it into Instagram or Pinterest or any other ones, you'd have to recreate that design every single time. If you have the paid version of Canva, which again, I do suppose is a very good system, but if you want to stick with the free one, you're not able to do the automatic resize, which is a very good feature. However, I want to show you a quick kind of trick on how you can at least make your job easier if you have to resize it. And it all has to do with copy and paste. Very functional, very useful. So let's say we've created this YouTube thumbnail, how to speed up your old tablet, right? Now we want to create an Instagram post with the same one, but we don't have the pro version of Canva. So how can we do it? You may have already stumbled upon this yourself, but it's somewhat unintuitive, but the copy and paste feature within Canva works across tabs. So we are logged into Canva, right? And if we just create a brand new one, so this is a size of an Instagram post, right? So a nice square version of it. Create the new one for whatever size you want to transfer it into. And now it's going to be, it's a little bit repetitive, but it's fairly straightforward. We're just going to copy the elements in. So this will bring in all the sizes, all the effects that we've done, the various pieces of text, and it's going to save us a lot of time if we haven't paid for Canva Pro. So for instance, if we go into the background, here's a photo. So to get to the background image, I'll just double click, copy. So in my case, Control C or Command C on the keyboard, come back to where you want, into your new design, Control V or Command V, and there it is. Paste it into the background. And as you'll watch, we'll be able to do this with all of the elements. Now, I've had some success with copying multiple at the same time to make it even faster. I tend to like to go a little slowly since I need to reposition it. And from here, as I said, this is not as seamless and as magical as the auto resize version from the free version. However, again, if you're just looking to have a basic Canva account and don't want to pay for it just yet, this will kind of get you out of the woodworks. Now, if there is items that are together, so we have, for instance, the text and the background shape. In our case, it is grouped. Now, let's say it isn't, though. I do suggest you group them. So select the items that have more than one. Grab these two. Right-click and group, or select those two in the top right. You'll see that group appears. And this way, too, that'll save you a bit of an extra step and make sure that the spacing is the same when you do bring it over here. And now that it's over here, we can play around and get the effect that we wanted. So if you switch quickly from side to side, you want to make sure that it's really giving off the same vibes. It's capturing the same design aesthetic or concept for it. So how can we make this a little bit better? So I'd say I don't necessarily like how small this is, and same with the text here too. So we're going to just reduce the width of the box itself, but then grab the corner here, the circle, we'll increase the size. May as well make it nice and easy to read on mobile devices. Same with this here, we'll grab the group, grab the circle corner, and drag it larger. So there we have it. As I said, in some ways, it's sort of unintuitive how well the copy and paste works as far as keeping the styling and the spacing and everything else. You wouldn't think that it would work much like your computer if you were to copy from one program to the other, but it does. And it's going to allow you to easily resize something without necessarily having Canva Pro. So very useful little trick for that one there. How to change the size or dimension of your Canva design. Next up, changing the background image. Now for Canva veterans, perhaps this is old covered ground. However, I get asked this quite a bit because some of the interactions in changing the background image tend to be a little bit tricky, a little bit finicky when it gets into it. So here's how we change the background image within Canva, within a Canva space. And it's very important to think about it as if you had a large piece of paper, in this case kind of like a gray piece of paper, and you've cut out a square in the middle and you're shoving a piece of paper behind it. So it very much frames it in. And more than just frames it in, you could imagine in real life, if you had that frame on top of it, you'd have to reach into the photo below it and move it around, size it to get it to look the way it wants. So that's very much what the background acts like as you're playing with it. So the common mistakes I see people do is, let's find here's a nice city, a nice photo one. So if I want to add to the background, you might be thinking, okay, I'll just click on it. It doesn't necessarily work. It just gets slammed in. And even if you do resize it to take up the full background, at this point, it isn't a background element yet. It's just on top. But as soon as you have expanded it the entire way, you'll notice all of a sudden I can't click on it anymore. So let's press Control Z for undo. And all of a sudden now it's an element again, right? So to best see that, let's go ahead and just add a square, just a gray square. And we can actually, I'm going to select this and put it to back because I want you to see how that kind of works. Let's make that red. So I'll select it, position to front. Okay, so here's our red square, it's in front. Now as I click this and I drag it down to the bottom, it becomes a background element. This pops up on top of it because now this has been placed into the background as an element. So that can be a little bit confusing if you're trying to add an image and take up the space in the background, and all of a sudden it's repositioned and not gone where you expected it to. So that's good to know as you're playing around with it. Further way to go about it, the more obvious way and way that will save you a bit of headache as far as how it applies is actually to not click and bring it in, but drag it and drag it close to one of the edges. This reliably will send it into the background and have it fill up the entire space. Now you can see the different ways that happens. So if I just click the image, it pops in. If I click and drag it just in the center, the photo is just sitting there. But if I click it and drag it and bring it close to one of the edges, then it pops into the background nicely for us and does its best to fill it. Now, if we wanted more city and less sky, again, I can't click on this right now. This could become frustrating. So the thing to do here is double click into the background. So I was here, double click, here's the photo. Now the good thing is, so here we can drag it wherever we want. Now one of the problems would be, let's say we have a really high quality photo and we want to zoom in on one of these buildings or anything else like that. What we can do is bring it down all the way. And now you'll notice that I do get my grabbing circles here on the corner if I can get up to the top. So it's a bit unintuitive. If you need to, because you can't really see it, you need to bring the photo all the way down, do your zooming or your sizing, like drag it and scroll it to be larger, and then you can drag it around, right? So let's say if we want to have a lot more city than anything else, and then simply kind of just click outside of it, and there it is. Again, double click, move it around, and we'll place her there. So that is for changing a background image. As I said, it's a bit finicky, and I find it kind of tricks me often where I've dragged something to the corner, all of a sudden it's now a background image and I have to play around with it. So it's best, as I said, make sure that you drag it in, bring it around to one of the corners, and realize that if you double click it, you could zoom it, drag it, push it around, and get some really great looking background images effects. So hello to Kelly, thanks so much for joining us here. I'm going to cover a few more items and then going to get to questions for sure. Apps and integrations. Can't wait to get into that. Okay, an image and a shape. So this is, again, for Canva regulars, this might be a bit basic, but I see it asked all the time, and I think you'll see a design being produced by Canva, and it's not a very great name, I find, for the actual element that you use to put a shape or image into a shape. So I wanted to just cover that briefly here. So how to get an image inside of a shape inside of Canva. So if you go to Elements, what you're going to be looking for is not actual shapes, which would almost be kind of intuitive. We add in a shape, we go to Photos, and no effect, doesn't work, doesn't snap to, can't get it to filter. Doesn't really work for us. What you're looking for is frames. So think about photo frame. This is very much going to be framing or cropping the image to whatever shape it is. So we have kind of this badge or guarantee version here. This sort of image is a visual highlight of how it's going to look. Now at this point, we can take any of these photos. I got this lunch here, and you can drag it in. And then much like background image, if you double click inside of it, from within the shape, you can then scroll and move it around to the side. Okay, I want more plate to be shown. Or you know what, I want to show as much as possible, so I'm going to reduce the corners and then make it about halfway here. It's kind of nice because they have a grid, so you can play around where exactly on the grid you'd want it to show. A placement like that, super simple. So what you're looking for, again, if you want to have a photo inside of a shape, what you're looking for is a frame, and that's underneath of the elements here. So click on Elements, go Frames, and then See All, and you get the whole list of really useful, interesting frames to use for that effect. So actually, let me, Kelly, let's dive into your question there. I've not used much of the integrations, if I've been honest. Haven't found too many of them useful, and actually, unfortunately, I'm on my Canva free account. I have done some work as far as integration with Dropbox or Google Drive, just being able to work with clients where they can upload a series of brands for me, like if they have a brand and a photo and particular things to use. I do like some of the integrations with the storage, but as well, I have integrated with, on my pro account, I have integrated with Instagram to be able to immediately post, which is kind of nice. So create my post within Canva and then directly post out to Instagram immediately for social, which is, saves a step. Don't have to type on anything else. I have like that. Otherwise, I haven't really found a lot of use for integrations that have worked. There was like I said, I do find I'll have 4 or 5 tabs open when I'm using it. So, as I just alluded to from my background image transparency thing, Spark has a free version of that. Now, of course, as a pro user, you can use it. But as a pro user, you can obviously just use Canva's built-in version of that. But I tend to have that open. I tend to have Unsplash open. I really enjoy using coolers.co for color palette ideas. So if the client I'm working with or I myself have a particular color, let's say this is my brand color, I'll lock this in and then be able to create some really beautiful, gorgeous color palettes that work based on this color. Right? And even if you have 2 colors, you can lock those in from a brand, from a client, and then come up with colors that work with those 2 colors there. So that's coolers. So direct integrations I haven't found too much use for necessarily, but I always have 4 or 5 tabs open when I'm working for some other uses like that. Let's see. Question here from Kessa. To see more frames, you may use aesthetic dynamic frames as element keyword. Let's give that a try. Love spelling aesthetic, don't you? Oh, look at that. Those are gorgeous. I hadn't even seen those before. Some really interesting shapes to consider to really kind of spice up a design. A bridge. Yes. Wow. Goodness, these are wild. You look at the the splotch within a splotch. That is fantastic. So using aesthetic dynamic frames to bring up even a wider selection of frames that are available. Let's get some photos in here, because this stuff looks interesting. Excellent tip. Thank you very much, Kessa. Really appreciate that. Man, that is buck wild. Beautiful, though. Now, that actually, I had mentioned cooler, so that does make me want to bring up another favorite trick of mine to quickly get a color palette. So let's say you yourself have a color palette, or you want to design a new color palette. A client sends you a color palette to use, any of the above. As opposed to coming in and, let's say, just for simplicity's sake, we need to brand some squares to put some text on it. Let's just say 3. 1, 2, 3. Let's balance those out. And let's bring them in. Great. Okay, so we want to make those the actual brand's colors, right? Not a stellar design at this point here, but it's just to show the idea of it. Let's create a new palette. There we go. This is kind of nice. Now, as opposed to entering in these colors themselves, so you grab the hex code, come back over to Canva, select it, choose the color itself, and then paste in the hex code. Many steps there. What can be a little bit faster is if you use the snipping tool. So if you take a screenshot, basically. Now on the Mac, you can do a screenshot and actually select just a region, an area. Inside of Windows, which I'm using, you can do the snip tool and then click and drag and just choose an area. Let me do that quickly off screen. I'm going to do snipping tool. I don't think this part of my screen is being shared, but you'll see it when I copy and paste it. So take a screenshot, or screen grabs even better. Now, if you can kind of keep it just within the colors itself, copy that and paste it into your Canva board. So what I've done, so I've taken a screenshot of those colors and I've pasted it in. Pay attention to this upload here, because you'll see that now it's uploaded that particular color set. So to save some time, what's really nice is that Canva is going to go through and find these photos and pick out the colors for you. And if it's really highly delineated like this, it'll choose each one for you to reuse as brand colors through the design. So what do I mean by that? So I had a color or a new palette here. I took a screenshot of them to capture them. I copied that and then I pasted it directly in. Or you could, save it as an image, upload it, however you get it there. Once the image of your palette is up, Canva is going to grab it and allow you to select it. So if I want to make this the red, I'll select it. I'll choose the color. And right here, photo colors. So what Canva's done is it's gone through to this photo and it's pulled out all of those colors for us. So as opposed to having to, copy the hex code, paste it, all that work, instead we just paste this brand color image and we'll let Canva do the work and pick them out for us. So here's that's actually the purple there. If we hit see all, looks like it actually missed the red, so that's unfortunate. So the results may vary slightly, but there's the blue, and here's the black. And you kind of quickly grab those colors and put it in. Now, results might vary a little bit. It's going to be fairly close. I do find because of the compression of images and everything, you might want to triple check just how close it is. You want to be very specific because it is your brand colors. But ultimately, if you go to a site like this and want a quick off, if somebody gives you a high quality photo that will come across, if you copy it and paste it into Canva, you'll be able to Canva will pull it out of the color, out of the image, and allow you to apply it very quickly. So super useful, just kind of a quick snap in there. Okay, so lastly, what's interesting is, again, from a Canva perspective, it's fairly basic, or fairly as far as like 101, but I did want to discuss working with photos a little bit, because I see the question come up a bit from clients, people I work with, and just generally online. So how to add photos to Canva. So a couple ways to think about that question. Firstly is if you want to add your own photos. If you have photos locally on your computer that you want to upload, simple ways to do that is if you can just drag and drop. So I'm just grabbing a image from my computer and I drag it onto the browser screen and it's going to drop it right in for me. Now you'll notice as soon as you do that, this upload circle will start to slowly fill up. You do want to wait a little bit before the for the upload to completely finish to make sure you got the highest quality version of it. But a quick drag and drop will get the photo up there. As well, if you just go to uploads and hit upload media, from here you can choose the integrations, whether it be from Facebook, Google Drive, or Dropbox, and then drag it into there. So if you choose device, choose a photo that's on your locally on your computer. I got a logo here of mine kind of selected. As soon as I click, it'll upload, upload, upload. And there it is appeared, ready to go. A trick I like to have is if you're using a site like, let's say Unsplash, a couple ways to do it. So let's say we take this photo here. Now, if we don't need this full image and we actually just want a kind of smaller one of it, you can use the same screenshot tool. Now, what I'm going to do is I want to actually show the screenshot part of it. So let me stop sharing my screen for a second. Let me add the entire screen because I noticed it didn't do it before. Here we go. Great. So if you grab the screen grab tool, if you're on Windows, you can find it with Snipping Tool or the Snip and Sketch. On Mac, it's a built-in screen grab tool. And you can actually drag a particular section. So it can be really useful here is if you just go New, grab the area of the photo that you actually want to bring into your design. And now the screen grab tool has it. If you go to edit and copy, let me just get rid of this. You can now paste that image directly in. So it's going to save you a step as far as uploading, downloading, finding the file, all those various steps. And even better too is it works as a kind of a cheap cropping mechanism. You see, I didn't want to take this whole photo, I just wanted those. So by using the snipping tool, I can choose what part of the photo I want, copy it, paste it, and get it in really quickly. It can be a very fast and simple way to do so. Then even still, if you did want that as a background, you don't have to worry about that. As we mentioned, you click and drag. You can still use the photo as any other way that you would inside of Canva. You know, once you've done that once you've pasted it, it's immediately inside there. Now, if you do want the higher quality version of it, let's find a different photo. Unsplash, an amazing resource for photos. Let's get this person seemingly sliding down into a volcano. I'll go with download free. I'm just going to save to my local. Great. So it's saved down there. Now, of course, you can just go to upload, choose it from your device. One thing I find is if you're using Chrome, Firefox, or any of the other kind of modern browsers, you'll see this download bar at the bottom that states this is what you've downloaded recently. If you click and drag this, it'll actually upload immediately. So again, kind of just saving you one step as far as clicking upload, browsing through your computer and finding it again. This file here itself inside of this kind of notification bar at the bottom is actually can be interacted upon. You can grab it and drag it into your photo. So here we have it. So now how do we work with, so that's a few ways to get photos onto the system. Of course, using Canva. If you go to photos, you have access to millions of photos completely free to use. Volcano. Pulling from actually some of the same sites with Pixa and Unsplash and many others. So, but once you do have a photo in, tell you what, let's grab a more horizontal one to fit better in the space. How you use the photo is many different ways. As we kind of mentioned before, if you click and drag it near the edges of it, becomes a background image. That's great. But if you click it once, comes in, now we can play with this photo and manipulate it. The real keys when working with a photo is to notice the two different types of areas that you can grab. You can either grab these corners, and this is going to allow you to edit the size of it. What's nice is it's going to keep it in proportion, so you're not going to skew your image, make it like squish it or make it too long, which would make it look bad. It keeps it the proportions right. So the corners will allow you to scale it and size it. Let's say we want to take up half the screen. So I'll scale it. Now, if you want to kind of crop it, what you're going to do is click it and grab one of the corners, one of the sides. And this is going to let you crop it. right? So let's say we want to add 2 more very quickly. And I'm going to just crop it around the fire because that's kind of like the more interesting part of the photo. And tell you what, let's create 1 more. What's kind of useful here, what I like to do is if I wanted to have the exact same size of the photo, if you bring it on top of it, you can then use the photo behind it to make it the exact same size. Because you'll see as soon as I get to the edge, it kind of snaps. You'll see that pink line. And then without much effort, I now have a photo that's the exact same size. So that's really the way to think about photos. Like you can grab photos from anywhere, upload it. You can copy and paste photos if you use the screenshot tool. If you click on them, it comes right in. And then there's the 2 ways to manipulate it. You can drag it from the corners, which will scale it, maintaining the proportions. Or you can grab the sides and you can crop it. What's nice too with the way Canva treats it is that if you do want to go wider than the image would be, it will grow to fit. So it's never going to let you have empty space inside of a photo frame there. And that is how to use photos in Canva. Question here from Kelly. Can you easily drop a photo you created on Canva back into uploads without downloading and re-uploading? Yeah, so not super easy, but be a few ways to go about it. So if you wanted to take this as a photo and do it kind of quickly, let's see, let's get rid of that. If we put this at 100%, so this is as big as it would be, the same trick would apply where you can just take a screenshot of it. Now again, like it's not necessarily going to be as good of quality. However, theoretically, because it is 100%, that should be the true pixel width. Like this, if you measure this, this should be, let's say 1200 or whatever the size is. And again, if you went copy, and then you pasted it, there it is for it. And as you may know, one of the fun things to do with this is once you have a photo of an element you've created, you can then apply some effects to it because it's now just a flat photo. It's not the actual elements. And for instance, you can like blur it. So your background could become a blurred version. Position to back. In this case, it kind of creates a sort of shadow effect, but because it is now a photo, you can put it there. Otherwise, if you were to get out there, otherwise, if you were to do the same sort of thing, where download, I want to download page 7. So I will download page 7. Let's go ahead and download that. When it does download, it's going to show up in the bottom bar here. And I should be able to then just grab it. Okay, save it locally. And now that it's in this bar, you can save one kind of quick step by just grabbing it from the bottom bar and drag it right in. So saving a little bit of space. So generally, if you want to speed it up a little bit, take a screenshot of it. And otherwise, download it, upload it. If your elements, if you have kind of space for it, if you go full screen, if you take the screenshot from this version, as long as there's no elements in the way here, because it's a larger format and then you shrink it down, you'll have kind of the best possible view for the best possible quality when you bring it back up. So especially if it's just kind of like text and other elements that would scale nicely, not necessarily photos. Most useful when I take a background out of a photo and want to use it in the future as a PNG. Yeah, so generally, I haven't seen any super fast way to do that, especially with the transparent background. Yeah, the screenshot tool example I just gave wouldn't really work for that, so you'd really want to download it as a PNG and have it there. I haven't seen any great way to save itself as a photo. So I think about the only step you could really save is just download it and drag it from the bar once it's done downloading. It might help just a bit. Okay, how are we doing for time? Just last one, and again, trying to cover just the questions I get asked the most, and they tend to be fairly basic, but in so doing, we actually kind of cover some of the fun, interesting parts of design. So I want to talk about text. So one of the questions is, how do you add text? How do you work with text? So I wanted to dedicate some time here to how do you work with the text box within Canva and some ideas and concepts for how to create great designs using that. So in Canva, on the left side here, you'll see the box with text. There's a bunch of fun already designed ones, which you can certainly play around with. So they've paired some fonts together or some font treatments. Oops, the previous one stayed around there. So they paired some nice fonts, and then if you wanted to have, you know, 1 day sale, great. So, you know, the designers at Canva have put together some really great fonts that look beautiful and work together. Certainly an option, great to play around with. But, you know, for our case, let's look at working with the actual core fonts itself and kind of learning about the text boxes themselves and how to use them. So the easiest way to add it is you go text, you'll have the top 3 bits of text. So the heading, subheading, and text body. Let's go with 1 day sale. Let's go with get all of our items for up to 60% off. Tell you what, center that in the middle. And then the body text, the 3 kind of varying parts of it. Learn more online, just enough.design. Subtle plug for my website. So the working with the text things themselves, again, much like we saw with photos or other elements within Canva, you're going to have the 2 types of ways to manipulate the box itself. Let's give this some space so it's a bit easier to see. You're going to have the side items here, so the kind of longer rounded square. If you click and drag it, the box itself will scale and give you more room. Because if it's this small, you'll see that eventually things will drop down to the next line. If you want to give it more room so it stays on the same line, you actually make the box itself wider. Now this is I really like using this when I want to make absolute sure it's dead center inside the design. And this is something that I use inside of Illustrator, Photoshop, XD, all of the design programs. But if I want to make sure text is really centered, I'll take the text box itself and drag it all the way across. And this way, for sure, if the text itself is centered, so text center, then any text you type in here on now will be centered. Now, if you don't want to go all the way to the edges, what's really nice, if you click that same square, start bringing it in, but hold the Alt key. What that's going to do is that's going to bring it in from both sides. And now, let's say I wanted to have on now in a different line, you can still be sure that it's centered. Now, not quite necessary in a sense because Canva is really good about denoting when you're in the center because of this big line in the middle. But you know, I tend to find when I'm working really quickly, or if I have a element, let's say like a box, maybe it's off-centered or somewhere else, and I want to make sure that I have the text centered in this box as opposed to trying to find it. I can sometimes find a little bit quicker to do that. Make sure that it takes up the whole width and then just bring it in. But let's bring it to the middle. Let's trust Canva's alignment tool. Going in there. Now, a lot of this will be obvious if you ever use a text editor, so we don't need to cover too much of it. We obviously have the fonts from Canva. The search can be very helpful if you've gone to a site like Mix Fonts, which is a really nice font generator as far as pairs that work. I have entire videos about how to use this one. So what you can do is, if you come here, if you found a font and you want to see if Canva does have it, allowing you to be able to use it. Let's see, I'm trying to find one that I know for sure they have. Irish Grover, Balsamic Sands. Not sure if they'll have that one, but let's try that. So let's say if we wanted to try to have this one, if you come into the font and on the top here is search. So from here, we selected the text box, we went up to the font box. That brought up a larger box here on the left side. And you can then type in the name of a font, and if it's available to you, it'll show up there in there. If you do have the Pro account, you can upload fonts to use. So in this case here, you'd be able to download Balsamic Sans and then upload it to Canva. But let's just go with Open Sans. I know that's available. Oh, Opens. That's not going to be available. Extra bold, right. So that's how to change the font. Somewhat more recently, they've added these plus and minuses for the font. This is really nice in so much as when we have this design now, we have the fonts laid out. I want this to be bolder and bigger. And I want to try to figure out, just very subtly kind of move the size up and down, kind of figure out where I want it to be. And this allows you to play with that and kind of slowly, incrementally move it up or down without having to enter it in or adjust it in other ways. The other nice way to do that too is, much like everything else, much like the photos or other elements, if you grab this corner, it will scale. Now, if you do have it centered, what's nice is after you click this, if you hold Alt, it's going to scale from the center. So if I have this nice and centered and this is where I want it to be, if I hold Alt, it'll only grow from the center, meaning that it'll stay nice and centered where I want it to be. Now, one of the more keys from design, especially when working with fonts, is ensuring that everything kind of stays together. As it stands with this particular size, there's a lot of distance between these two. We really have 1, 2, 3 text elements, and it would be very nice to keep it in tight groupings. Each item in and of itself staying together, and so clearly they're together with one another. The way to do that is with line height. So if we go ahead and click this text, if you come to this item here, it says spacing. So what we want to do is adjust the line height so the lines are not too far apart to make sure it's a tight grouping and looks solid. So we'll just sneak that up a little bit until we get it. Of course, you can go foolishly and go way too much until it's, or way too much in either direction. But if we find a nice balance where it looks like it is definitely one element, it is together, and just very clearly it becomes 1, 2, 3. Playing with line height and ensuring that's good for the font that you're using in the design is a real way to add a professional edge to the design when using text box. Now, when we were adjusting the size, if you did have a larger text box, you can decide where the text grows from. Does it go from the middle, and then as you grow it, it's going to go up and out? Or does the text start at the bottom, and as you add text, it'll grow upwards? Right, so that's where that would go. And the last one here to see is just lettering. So you'll sometimes see on some designs or sales, to kind of denote or create a larger sense, a bigger presence for the particular font, you move the letters apart from one another. And that's also done here from spacing. You want to be careful because, of course, if you get too far apart, it just looks like a jumble of words as opposed to anything else. So use discretion, but it's a effect you may have noticed. Most keyly, though, is just using the line height to make sure it looks like a tight grouping that's together. So again, from the left side, you grab text. You can add kind of a basic heading. Once selecting there, you can choose the font that you want. The search being super useful if you found a set of Google fonts or other fonts online. The plus or minus for the actual size of it, and then I think most key otherwise would be the line, under spacing, looking for line height and making sure it's a nice tight grouping with the text. In playing with the box itself, the text box, grabbing the sides will make more room for the words or less, forcing things to go on a new line. And most usefully, if you hold Alt while pressing it, you will move it equally on both sides, keeping things centered. Same is true for the side. Grabbing one of the corners, we'll scale it. Holding Alt, we'll scale it from the middle, ensuring the design stays about where you had it. So those were the items I had covered for today as far as the live stream. Again, big thanks to Kessa, Bono, and Kelly for the suggestions and also for the questions. I hope that might have been useful. If you are watching the recording of this and you'd like to be a part of it next time, go ahead and subscribe to my YouTube channel or my Facebook group. And I'll be putting out notifications when I'll do another live. If you have questions before then that I can answer, please just reach out to me either through one of those social channels or from my email. You can find that on the contact form on my website, Just Enough Design. Would love to help out for any other design challenges or ideas that you have for yourself or your client in creating beautiful design. I cannot thank you enough for being with me today. Hope that was somewhat helpful, and can't wait to see some of your design. Cheers to your great looking work. Bye, everybody.